I have a job for you.
Jeez, it's not another arc, is it?
No, not again. This time I need a full-scale home renovation.
Noah Construction and Builders is your design and build partner. We do it all, from additions and dormers to full-scale renovations. Schedule your no-cost design consultation today. Visit us online at noahconstruction-builders.com.
Noah Construction and Builders. Through dreams we design, with vision we build.
And, of course, thank you to our title sponsor, Noah Construction-Builders.com. Welcome to Muscle Sport Media Live on WGBB Radio 95.9 FM, 1240 AM. I am your co-host, Joe Pietaro, flying solo again, scheduling conflict. Anthony will be back soon. I promise. Of course, I'm not alone because I got Trevor behind the glass getting everything done so you guys can come and hear this. But I also want to welcome a new sponsor to the show, Adams Home Improvement, Repairs, and Maintenance, a.k.a. HML Corp. This guy is my guy. He's more than a handyman, so I don't want to use that word because it has a little connotation to it. This guy is licensed and insured in Suffolk and Nassau counties for 28 years, since 1995. And that was also the year I moved from the borough of Brooklyn to Long Island. Handyman task, interior and exterior painting, moldings, heat covers, carpentry, electrical, replacement windows, floor installation, deck building, power washing. The list goes on and on. Free estimates Monday through Sunday. Guys, Adam is not only a friend of mine, he's done a lot of work in my house. He just did the whole top floor, refloored it. So take this number down, 631-321-4309. You can also reach them via email, DLRMACAN@optonline.net, DLRAMCAN@optonline.net. Want to welcome HML Corp, Adam Handyman Home Improvement Specials to Muscle Sport Media Live. And since this is a fitness and sports company, listen, I ain't going to lie. Anthony knows a lot more about fitness than I would ever find out. I'm a journalist. I report on it. Anthony lives it. He went to school for it. He's got degrees in it. That's why when we do our show together, I kind of basically, I'm the Abbott to his Costello. I set him up with the line, and he comes in with the punchline. And in our case, it would be the explanation, the answer, and stuff like that. So I figured I would delve into a little sports talk tonight, since WGBB does a lot of sports talk. And it was because I saw an old article that I wrote from a few years back about the New York Jets and their quarterback situation. And it got me thinking. This article I wrote was a few years back, and it was about Sanchez and Tebow. So I looked back, and I was like, since I've been covering the New York Jets as a sports writer since 2005, I'm 56 years of age. I used to go to Shea to watch them as a fan, but the minute you become a sports writer, your fan hat comes off, and it stays off for the most part. Kind of changes the way you look at sports, where it's more of a business thing. And especially with the Jets, I've, over the years, had to kind of make it more of a business thing. Just because of the frustration involved if you are a fan. Plus also, they're a New Jersey team. They blew off New York years ago. Didn't even want to listen to the Queensborough president's presentation when they were going to have them a great possible multi-purpose area where they were putting Citi Field. They didn't even want to talk about it. West Side Highway or nothing. And we're going to just continue to be second bananas at Giant Stadium. Call it whatever you like. It's Giant Stadium. But I was just looking at the graveyard of quarterbacks that's been with this team since after Broadway Joe left in 1977 after the 76 season. Most people forget that he went to the LA Rams for a year, and he was already pretty much washed up. His knees were gone. But in 76, now they only played 14 games back then, they already had drafted his replacement, Richard Todd. same school, Alabama, Bear Bryant guy. So it was almost like a eerie kind of thing where you had Joe Namath in '65 going to the AFL at the time, big name, played with the Jets, guaranteed the Super Bowl win. This was still AFL, NFL, and that kind of the merger was going to happen anyway. But that didn't hurt, obviously. The merger happening with the Jets winning the Super Bowl against the big bad Baltimore Colts in '69. So now Namath, superstar to this day, household name. In his last season as a Jet, played 8 games, and his heir apparent, Richard Todd, plays 6. 77, Todd plays 11. Matt Robinson played only 1. 78, Robinson 11, Todd 5. Now, Todd went through some injuries, things like that. And this is when the Jets already started putting pressure on their guy who they gave the stick to. A lot of fans were calling for Matt Robinson to be the starter, not Richard Todd. Now you got to realize Richard Todd, there was bed sheets, signage at Shea, people saying Todd is God. I mean, he was a lot of expectations. He did bring them to the playoffs. They had success under Richard Todd, but still, it's New York. Fans are never satisfied. So there were people that were wanted to see Matt Robinson play. Well, the Jets made the right decision there. They traded Matt Robinson to the Denver Broncos, package that included another backup quarterback named Craig Penrose. But that made it seem, and Matt Robinson went on to play for the Jacksonville Bulls of the original USFL. So 80 and 81, Todd plays all 16 games. Again, a playoff team. You can cry all you want, the mud ball, A.J. Dewey, whatever how it is, but either way, Richard Todd was a successful quarterback for the New York Jets. Didn't win a Super Bowl, of course, but in 82, there's a strike, so there's not a full slot. 9 games for Todd. Again, in 83, he comes back, plays 16 games, and they're very successful. 84, Pat Ryan plays 11 games. But you have to remember, these are the Jets, so they're looking to replace Todd. They draft Ken O'Brien. You can complain in 83 draft, the quarterback draft in 83. People could say, how did they pass Marino up? Folks, if you're not privy to it, every team except for the Redskins, because they picked last, and the Dolphins picked next to last because the Redskins were the Super Bowl champions, and the David Woodley-led Miami Dolphins lost to them. That was the year with John Riggins with that great run down the sideline, Joe Theismann. So Miami drafted Dan Marino. A lot of teams passed on him, not just the Jets, the Patriots, the Chiefs, the Bills. Tons of teams passed on Dan Marino, so you can't cry that song. But Ken O'Brien from Cal Davis, listen, at the time we thought it was, what are the Jets thinking? Ken O'Brien, if you look at his numbers, was a very good quarterback. Did not have protection. He had 62 sacks against them one year. It wasn't all his lack of mobility. It was a bad offensive line. But he did play well for a number of years. Played 85. He played 16 games. And 86, now this is the year the Jets start 10-0. Mark Gastineau blows his knee out in this 10th game, a win against the Indianapolis Colts. Also, you got to remember, they moved from Shea to Giant Stadium in 84. I was at that game when Gastineau got hurt in 86. Put a black cloud over that team. They end up starting Pat Ryan in the playoff game against the Chiefs, wild card game at MetLife. They 10-0, and they end up going on a 6-game losing streak. So that's why they pulled O'Brien. This was the Joe Walton. I didn't even get to Walt Michaels because we're sticking on quarterbacks here. Ken O'Brien comes in the game against Cleveland, and they, of course, Mark Mosley, double overtime after missing a kick in the first overtime, breaks the Jets' hearts in 86, which would have been really amazing because the Jets would have had an opportunity if they beat Denver to face the Giants in the Super Bowl. And we know what happened in that 2019. Phil Simms led the Giants to that Super Bowl win. So Ken O'Brien ends up is the number one quarterback of the Jets for a number of years. But in '89, they bring in Tony Eason, who they were buddies, and he was drafted with him that same year. The Patriots cut Tony Eason. So now there's a little bit of, not really a big controversy, but some people are souring on O'Brien, and they want to see Eason in there. Thankfully, it didn't happen. O'Brien goes through 91 with the Jets, playing all 16 games, starting in them. 91, the Jets had a very good season. They made the wild card playoffs. So close. Terrence Mathis almost pulled that pass in where they ended up losing 17-10 at the Astrodome to the Houston Oilers. I was happy they covered the spread. It was 9, but Jets cannot rest on their laurels. They're trying to draft Brett Favre as hard as they can get. They're trying to trade up to get Favre, and they miss out on him. So what do? They go second banana, taking Browning Nagel in the second round, and they make him the starting quarterback over Ken O'Brien in 1992. Ken O'Brien should have started that year. Browning Nagel was not ready to start. They were 4-12. This was the very disappointing year for the New York Jets. This was also the year Dennis Byrd had his horrific injury. It was just a really bad scene in 92 at Giant Stadium if you were a Jet fan. Nagel played 13 games. O'Brien played 3. Of course, the Jets realize that they need to make a change. So what do? They trade for Boomer Esiason. Local kid comes home. They dump O'Brien. In Jets fashion, they have Boomer's press conference while Ken O'Brien is still on the roster, and Boomer's holding up the number 7, which Ken O'Brien wore. So O'Brien knew he was going to be dealt. He ended up getting traded. I think they got for a song to the Packers, and his career was pretty much over then. And you had to be happy Boomer came home. He still was pretty good. I mean, he had a great year in '89, almost won a Super Bowl, just an amazing comeback drive by Joe Montana to John Taylor. Stole the Super Bowl away from Sam White and Boomer Esiason and the Bengals. So he still had a lot left in the tank with the Jets. 93. Had a good year. They need to win that last game of the year to make the playoffs. And it's a Sunday night game against the Oilers. Oilers had nothing to play for. Started a backup. Bucky something. Name escapes me now. And the Jets get creamed. So they don't make the playoffs. Definitely coaching changes and stuff. In 94, Boomer plays 14 games. This was the year they brought in Pete Carroll. And Jack Trudeau, cast off from the Colts, played a couple of games. 95, they bring in Rich Kotite as head coach. Got rid of Pete Carroll. We know Pete Carroll went on to have a lot of success in both the collegiate and pro level. Boomer plays 12 games. Bubby Brister plays 4 games. The year after that, the Jets they can't help themselves. They signed Neil O'Donnell to a big contract because Neil O'Donnell led the Pittsburgh Steelers to the Super Bowl. They win the Super Bowl, but it wasn't really because of Neil O'Donnell. The MVP went to a safety or a cornerback. I didn't feel like looking his name up because it didn't mean that much. Long story short is the Jets always go for the quick fix. They don't look and see what's going to be the long-term situation. Of course, in 96, O'Donnell gets hurt a lot. Actually came back and got hurt in warm-ups in a rain game. So that's a disastrous season in 96. They fire Kotite after 2 really bad years and bring in the tuna. We have Bill Parcells comes in, but he was not an O'Donnell fan. So he had O'Donnell actually started 14 games. Glenn Foley, who was a good backup, they thought maybe he was going to play a lot of games for them. He got hurt his first game in under I think that was still under Kotite. But what does Parcells do? He tries too many tricks the last game of the year at Detroit. Jets win and get in. Listen, they went from a 1-15 team to a 9-17. Should have won that game. Should have been 10-6. But I think he got a little too cute. He tried a halfback option. He brought in Ray Lucas, who was a Wildcat type quarterback in that game, and the Jets lose to Detroit. But you know that he does not want any part of O'Donnell by doing that. So he's gone from the Jets. They bring in Vinny Testaverde, but Foley starts the season in 98, and Foley, they had that tough overtime loss in the opening game at, I believe it was it still Candlestick Park at the time? Whatever the park in San Francisco was called that year. But Testaverde gets forced in to action and has a career year. This was the year that the Jets make the AFC Championship game, had a, was it 10-0 lead at the half? However it goes, of course, John Elway breaks their hearts. They win the game, so you figure, okay, 99 is going to be the Jets' year. But Vinny gets hurt, blows his Achilles in the opening game against the Patriots, so they have a carousel that year. Ray Lucas, Rick Myra, a bust, and Glenn Foley. Things didn't work out. They bring back Testaverde, who plays 16 games in 2001, but his time is done, so they draft Chad Pennington and end up giving him some starts in 02. He gets 12 starts. Now, Chad Pennington had a tough time staying healthy, was a very successful quarterback as a Jet, brought them to the playoffs a few times. In 03, he played 9 games and Testaverde 7. 04, he gets hurt. Quincy Carter was a Cowboys backup. He comes in and plays a few games with the Jets that year. 05, Chad gets hurt. Vinny gets hurt. Brooks Bollinger ends up playing a lot of games. But in 06, Pennington again plays 16. 07, Pennington gets hurt. Plays in 8 games. Kellen Clemens plays in 8 games. But guess what else happened in that postseason? The Giants won the Super Bowl. So the Jets need to make a splash. What do? They trade for Brett Favre and cut Chad Pennington, who goes to the Dolphins. And what happens? Favre starts 16 games, has a great start as a Jet, and a brutal December. And not only does Chad Pennington get revenge, he beats the Jets at Giant Stadium to give the Dolphins the division and bring them to the playoffs while the Jets go home early. Well, Favre's a one and done in New York, even though he resurfaces in Minnesota as a Viking. What do the Jets do? They make a trade. They trade up. They draft the quarterback of their future, who ends up being the quarterback of their present, Mark Sanchez. Say what you want about Mark Sanchez. I liked Mark Sanchez. I thought it was a good move for them. They gave him the team in 09 and 10, brings them to AFC Championship games back to back. Perhaps he was not, listen, he was no Johnny Unitas as a quarterback, but he was a very serviceable quarterback that had a good offensive line, a good running game. They had a good defense. They had Rex Ryan, a defensive-minded head coach. Things worked well for the Jets when they had Mark Sanchez playing well. Now, he gets hurt a little bit, and they end up missing the playoffs by a game in his third year in 2011. Like I said, 9 and 10 are great. 2011, if they win that last game again, it seems to be a common denominator with this ball club. They missed the playoffs, but listen, even in a year where Sanchez did not have his best, they finished 8-8. It wasn't a disaster, but also here we go again. The New York Giants win the Super Bowl. Their second Super Bowl while the Jets are still spinning their wheels. So, panic move time. Let's bring in a quarterback. They trade for Tim Tebow, but they don't want him to be the quarterback. They want him to be the up man in the punt team, so they tell him to put bulk and muscle on. Totally ruins his mobility. Listen, Tim Tebow is Tim Tebow. I'm not going to say he was going to be a Hall of Fame quarterback, but he did play well when he got the opportunity, and he did what he's supposed to do, be a mobile quarterback for Denver. They did win a playoff game with him. He played well against the Jets when the Jets played up in Denver. Sanchez has a not a good year. Greg McElroy ends up starting the last game of the year and took 6 sacks, so it was forever known as Greg Sackelroy, and they lost to the Chargers. So even when they had a chance to put Tim Tebow in, Ryan, you can tell Ryan wanted nothing to do with Tebow, that this was a front office move. He smells really bad that it was a ownership, a Woody Johnson kind of thing. So the Jets, what are we going to do? Well, Tebow's gone. Let's draft a quarterback. Geno from West Virginia, who started off his senior season at 6-0, and then showed that he was not a good cold weather quarterback in the Pinstripe Bowl at Yankee Stadium. But let's make Geno our second round pick and give him the job, because Sanchez played in the preseason and got hurt. Geno played 16 games in 13, played 13 games in 14. They already at this point got rid of Sanchez. Michael Vick came in out of jail and ended up playing 3. And then the Jets bring in Fitzpatrick. Geno gets punched in the face, breaks his jaw by a teammate. Fitzpatrick has a career year, and they just missed the playoffs again. So they called him Fitzmagic while they were doing that. So he plays again in 16. Bryce Petty, who was, I believe, a 6th round or a 4th round pick, plays a few games, doesn't really do much. The next year, the Jets bring in a old Josh McCown and give him 13 starts. What are they thinking of? Who knows? But here we are, back to the rescue. A new franchise quarterback in town, Sam Darnold. USC again. Let's try it again. USC does not put a lot of pro quarterbacks out there. Go back and look at their history. Sam Darnold didn't work out with him. But if you're going to give this guy the job, at least give him the chance and let him play. He was always looking over his shoulder. In 2019, even Trevor Siemian, keep that name in mind because it's going to come back in a moment or two. Trevor Siemian even played a game after being got rid of by the Denver Broncos. Just again, why is Darnold looking over his shoulder? Because the Jets are still trying to draft quarterbacks, a.k.a. a guy named Christian Hackenberg. I'm a Penn State fan. I loved Hackenberg. 2nd round in 16. Brutal as a Jet. 2nd round pick. That should be an impact player, a starter on your defense, or maybe as a running back or something. Waste the 2nd round pick on Hackenberg. He never takes a snap in a regular season game. He's gone. Darnold, again, in 12, doesn't impress. They bring in Flacco. He plays 4 games. What do they do then? They trade for Zach Wilson as the number 2 overall pick. Get rid of Darnold. Trade him over to the Panthers. And now here we are with the Wilson parade. You still see him going around for a couple of years, not impressing. Aaron Rodgers. See, this very eerily familiar, like the Brett Favre move. We don't know what Aaron Rodgers was. 4 plays into his Jet career, blows his Achilles out on the Giants, new Giant Stadium turf, and now we're back to Wilson. Might start this week after his 3rd benching, because what's better than Boyle? I mean, the Jets should have stood pat with Ken O'Brien, Chad Pennington, and Mark Sanchez. The 3 big mistakes the Jets made, in my opinion, as a journalist who's covered this team. I was a basically when I was the editor of New York Sports Scene, that was my beat was the Jets. Jets were one of my beats, if you will. They did not stick with the quarterback long enough that they should have, who should have been getting more playing time and not looking over his shoulder. The problem with the Jets is they always chase headlines. They're competing with the Giants. They will always be second banana. And I feel really bad for Jeremy Ruckert. Now, this kid was drafted in 2022 out of Ohio State in the 3rd round. He's a year older than my son. I've seen this kid grow up. I coached against his father, Bill, from Lindenhurst they're from. Local kid. This kid, we knew when this kid was like 9 or 10, he was going to be a stud athlete. I didn't know he was going to make the pros, but you could just see he was a big kid, a lot of talent, full class, never talked any, smack, even though he was head and shoulders, literally and figuratively, better and bigger than the rest of the kids on the field, on his team and on the opposition. I coached against him in both football and soccer. And when he got drafted by the Jets, I was like, oh, and I felt terrible because I said, they're going to ruin this kid. And my son even told me, they just signed the CJ, whatever his name, a big free agent signing from the Bengals. So I'm like, they picked this kid in the 3rd round. He's going to be buried. He's barely played. 2022, I have his numbers written here somewhere. He had 1 reception in 9 games, 0 starts. At least this year, he's got 12 games, 5 starts, and 11 receptions. CJ's on IR, so hopefully Jeremy Ruckert gets some. But who's throwing him the ball? Oh, God, I feel so bad for this kid. I hope he gets a chance to play for another organization. I know they were Jet fans growing up, and it was such a feel-good story. Feel better by playing with a team that has a direction. That's not the worst organization in professional sports. Oh, it's frustrating because you can see how many times they've made mistakes. Once again, I want to thank our new sponsor, Adams Home Improvement Repairs and Maintenance. Get a hold of them, 631-321-4309 or DLRMACAN@optonline.net. And of course, Noah Construction, our title sponsor. We will see you guys next Monday. Go to MuscleSportMag.com right now.
Noah, I have a job for you.
Jeez, it's not another arc, is it?
No, not again. This time I need a full-scale home renovation.
Noah Construction and Builders is your design and build partner. We do it all, from additions and dormers to full-scale renovations. Schedule your no-cost design consultation today. Visit us online at noahconstruction-builders.com.
Noah Construction and Builders. Through dreams we design, with vision we build.